Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Between Monsters and Men. Today we are delving into the abduction files of Betty and Barney Hill. Betty and Barney Hill's case is the first well-documented UFO abduction in history. In the early 1960s, a time before the civil rights movement began under President Johnson, the last thing the Hills wanted was a national publicity. Betty and Barney Hill were an American interracial couple who lived in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Both were loved and respected in their community, active in their local Unitarian congregation, and members of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Barney, who was African American, was employed by the United States Postal Service, and Betty was a social worker. Even during the sensitive workings of the civil rights movements, they both were committed to their jobs and relationship, and were even community leaders and sat on the local board of the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. But their once comfortable and certain life became unsettling after just a few hours one night when they were traveling home. On September 19, 1961, Betty and Barney Hill were traveling back from vacation in Montreal, Canada. They were on the road to Portsmouth at night when they first saw the light. Betty believed that it was a satellite the United States had just launched, while Barney thought it was a plane that had just an unusual bright light against the dark sky. But they both couldn't be more wrong. In seconds, that light got brighter and closer, soon following them as if tracking their movements. As the light got closer, Barney, who suffered from hypertension, was getting nervous. Betty continued to insist that it was only a satellite, and even felt safe enough to urge Barney to stop the car so they can get out and have a better look. And they did. Betty pulled out a pair of binoculars and used them to get a better look. But what she saw shocked her. It wasn't a satellite, but something that was illuminated with multiple colors. Right then, Betty and Barney got the feeling that the object suddenly noticed them. Becoming nervous, they got back in the car and raced off, but not fast enough. The light followed them for a few miles, and then the object began descending towards their car. Barney stopped the car in the middle of the road, grabbed his pistol that he had been carrying and the binoculars, and got out of his vehicle. Just 100 feet in front of them, the object hovered in place, lowering just right above the road. Barney slowly approached the craft, and as he did, he looked through the binoculars. And through a window on the craft, he could see humanoid creatures that looked too much like humans, but not enough like humans. He had this sudden impression that he was being ordered to stay where he was and wait. And as the humans began descending from their craft, he knew he was going to be captured. They were both caught by the humanoids and dragged into the clearing in the woods 150 feet away from their car. That's all they can remember. The next thing they knew, they were in the car driving home along a very familiar road, entering their driveway. But by then, it was almost dawn, and they had no idea where they had been the previous few hours. They tried to go back to their simple lives, but found it impossible. Barney, who suffered from hypertension, a disease that killed him, started to feel uneasy and had strange symptoms. He was unusually worried about his genitals and complained that they pained him, along with his stomach bothering him and sleep eluding him. He also seemed to be easily irritable, as if something was eating him up that he couldn't resolve. Betty didn't suffer from the same physical pains, but instead she was having terrible nightmares, dreams filled with horrible repressed memories that only resurfaced while she slept. Worried for her husband's physical health, she took him to the family doctor. But beyond high blood pressure, the doctor couldn't find anything wrong with him. With no physical illness or affliction, they would have had serious doubt that maybe something didn't happen, but they had proof. The dress Betty wore on the night of their occurrence had odd pink stains where she remembered the humanoids had touched her. So sure of what happened, Betty reported the incidents to the Pease Air Force Base near Portsmouth, New Hampshire. An investigator from Pease called her back, interviewed her, and then reported that Betty probably had only seen the planet Jupiter. However, Betty left out many important details of her encounter because she was afraid the investigator would claim she was insane. The Hills incident became part of the Air Force's Project Blue Book. After the physical exam and finding nothing, Barney's doctor suggested that the problem may be an underlying emotional issue that was manifesting itself as a physical symptom. Upon the doctor's advice, Barney visited a psychiatrist. After only one session in which the psychiatrist learned of Barney's loss of memory, the psychiatrist referred him to Dr. Benjamin Simon, a man who helped World War II pilots suffering from hysterical symptoms recovering loss of memories and control to integrate the underlying trauma. Dr. Simon put them both under hypnosis during separate treatment sessions, recorded the responses on tape and through transcription. Barney and Betty told the same account of their abduction. They said they were placed into a trance-like state by the humanoids and taken from the clearing by force onto what they both described as a craft of some sort. Once on the craft, they were both placed under restraint on examination tables where they were subjected to painful and invasive medical-type examinations. Barney Hill's was particularly embarrassing and painful, and though never described in detail, the humanoids did examine his genitals. Betty's experience of the creatures was of them inserting a thin rod into her abdomen, where they took a sample of fluid from her womb. They also tried pulling out her teeth after they were able to remove Barney's dentures. Betty tried to explain to them that some people lose their teeth as they age, and this intrigued them. She would then ask the leader where he was from, and she was shown a star chart. These examinations would indicate that the Hills could have been used as test cases of some sort of alien humanoid cross-fertilization. Betty was then given the post-hypnotic suggestion that she could draw the star chart that she had been shown, and she did. She said that the solid lines linking the stars were trade routes, and the dotted lines were less traveled to stars. The oddity of the map was the fact that the map was identified as being from the viewpoint of Zeta Reticuli, a twin star system not far from our own. The information on this system was not available to Betty or to astronomers until 1965. At first, Dr. Simon was skeptical about the nature of their encounter, suggesting that maybe Betty's abduction nightmares implicated the same story to Barney, who repeated it under hypnosis as well. But he soon truly believed that the Hills truly believed that their tales to be true, and he couldn't ignore that the couple's stories did offer different perspectives. Dr. Simon believed that the amnesia may have been resulted from some sort of shock, but the Hills claimed that the memory loss was induced. The therapy helped. Betty and Barney fully integrated their experiences into their conscious lives and began to speak openly about the events at local UFO meetings. They were interviewed by UFO researchers and investigators and were very forthcoming about their stories. Though surrounded by great skepticism, there is raising evidence on the events that occurred. For one, the Zeta Reticuli system that Betty drew up for Dr. Simon is indeed a twin star system whose information wasn't available to Betty or astronomers at the time. The second evidence is the dress Betty wore, which she kept preserved since the event, and the pink stains that were on them where the creatures had grabbed her was analyzed by organic chemist Dr. Phyllis Budinger. He was able to find protein remains left on the pink stains. Arguments rage over the veracity of the Hills' story even to this day, some going as far as suggesting that Barney's recollections were simply dreams that were prompted by an episode of Outer Limits that aired 2 weeks prior. Others have argued that there was never a UFO, only a spotlight on top of a mountain tower that appeared to be following their car. I couldn't find any information on there ever being a tower spotlight on the mountains in that area, but even if there were, why would it follow a car, and how would it explain the Hills' conscious memories of the events? There were also theories as low as the legitimacy of the hypnotic session and the questions asked, but these neglect to acknowledge that the Hills talked about these events before meeting Dr. Simon. Let alone, if he had coaxed the actual stories, he would ruin his reputation and could lose his job. Still a widely debated case, it goes on as the most memorable. With Barney having passed away in 1969, Betty continued to talk about the event and go to UFO meetings to continue their story even till her passing in 2004. The case and Betty and Barney Hill will always be remembered. For more dark and mysterious, please like, comment, and subscribe.